Hi, I want to take you through the Learning Lab app on how to deal with skill rubrics. Skill rubrics are really exciting. They're really good at communicating to your students. A lot of recreational classes like acro yoga or dancing are taught in a way where students just come to a drop-in class, they come to one class after the next, and they don't necessarily get a lot of feedback on where they're at. That has issues for motivations because you kind of want to see that you make progress. You also kind of want to have a goal, something you go towards. And a lot of times students also struggle maybe with certain areas. And then you want to know what can you do better. And the skill rubric feature is a way how you can communicate all of this to your students in a really nice way, and there's an exciting visual part to it as well. So let's get into defining a skill rubric. So I'm going to tap the gear button as a bottom to go into the content management flow and the check marks. So this is a skill rubric, and you want to think of a skill rubric as if you want to get good at a discipline, you have to get good in different dimensions. In acro yoga, you have to have a certain amount of strength. So that's one dimension. You have to have a certain amount of flexibility. That's another dimension. You also need to know a little bit of physics, like levers and those things. Basic physics. And spotting as a skill in of itself. Spotting is how a third person helps a flyer in the base stay relatively safe by jumping in case of an accident. So let's say there's a dimension called spotting. And if you would create a real acro yoga skill rubric, we'd have more dimensions and get more details, but that's a separate thing. Now, for each dimension, you want to create a little description. So let's call our physics dimension something like this: an understanding of basic physics is important to know how forces, fulcrums, and levers work. Now you might intimidate like a student with this. You want to have like a nicer description. So you've added our description. Then for each dimension you want to describe degrees. So maybe most people come in with like a nova as a novice. Let's create our what you're at as a beginner. Let's see what you're at intermediate. Then you have advanced. And expert. And you can get more granular here. If you want to, you can also just use numbers 1, 2, 3, maybe you have 10 degrees and it's just easier. Now, let's say as a novice, you simply walked in off the street and haven't exercised in a while. Yeah, that's like the first level. Then maybe as a beginner, let's define things. you want to be able to hold plank pose for 30 seconds. And you would describe the criteria of like, what is a beginner level skill of this? And maybe at advanced, can hold a tuck sit for 30 seconds. And this is going to be really interesting for your students also to read through, because this is the roadmap, this is what they're going to go towards. Now, now that we have degrees defined, we can also attach lessons or create lessons if you don't have them created yet. Those are exercises that help get better with it. So I kind of want to create a new dimension. Let's call it balance. I'm gonna be quick, I'm just gonna create 1 degree. Call it a novice. And what I'm going to define here is like, what exercises will help me get to the next level. And there's like a really fun thing called leg tosses. I won't get into what it is, but I'm gonna give it a nice synopsis to show up in the course catalogs the student sees. Leg tosses, a great exercise for beginning basis to develop balance skills. And I'm going to do the steps. The base lies on their back and lifts their feet with a 90-degree angle at their hip, and so on. See, leg tosses of my lesson attached. And I can add more lessons here. This just helps students to actually do something about it. Like, first they know what to improve, and second they know how. So now we've defined like a simple skill rubric. Let's head over. So this is the home screen for instructors. I have one student. I'm going to take a closer look at them. And you can see the skill rubric is a circle right next to their photo. And it's 5 dimensions right now. And it's empty because we haven't done a skill assessment yet. So we're going to create a skill assessment. You can see all the axes in the circle are labeled now. It's always great to leave a note for your student to give them some feedback. Welcome to our acro yoga program. I can see that you are in good shape from running. And people come in with different backgrounds, like some have different movement backgrounds. So for strengths, maybe if they're a really good runner, we can already mark them intermediate. Balance a novice. And actually let me go in and back and just define at least 1 degree for each one. I'm going to do it super quick, so I have just something to play with later. And we can adjust that order. Nice. Let's go back to our student. Remember we earlier entered a note. We said their strength is pretty good from running already. Everything else, we're going to start them off at 1. We're going to save it. And let's just create a second assessment. Let's say the strength stays the same, but they got more flexible. Basic physics got better, spotting is the same, balance is the same. Save. And now on top you can kind of see how the shapes changed. So the cool thing about the radar chart, it gives you shapes. So it kind of tells you the balance of the student. Like some people are maybe like really strong and bad with flexibility, and just by looking at the shape, as an instructor, you have like a quick assessment of what kind of student you're dealing with. And so this is a view that they see as well. And they can see your note, second assessment, and we've entered more detail for basic. We can see an understanding of basic physics is important, the description, and we can kind of like look at the different descriptions for. Remember we entered something here. So like a student can kind of see like what's expected at different levels, and they can also see the exercises and then go into the exercises. And we also have a history slider. We can kind of go back to what there was before. And this is like a little playback of our development. Let me show you something fun. When we're inside of the app, we often have these avatar photos. And if you double tap on it, it switches to the radar chart. You know, like kind of like lets you peek a little bit like, you know, what is that student like? Students, they can see their assessments by going to their profile page. And then you can go to your profile. I don't have an assessment, I'm the instructor. And so the skill rubrics. Play with it, they're a really great communication tool.